Thank you, Madam MC. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll begin a simple task of introducing the guests present here this morning. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Stephen Schwarzfisch, Chief Executive Officer, BPC. I also want to introduce Dr. Sergio Mapanyani, Biust Council Member. I have also the pleasure to introduce Professor Polo, the Vice Chancellor of this university. I have also amongst us here Professor S. Mushupe, Chief Executive Officer, BITRI. We have also Dr. Buzani Acheba, B-I-H. We also have Dr. B. Mbongwe, Director, Research and Partnership. I suppose it's Biust. We have also Mr. Mike Broughton of Mike Broughton Engineering. I have the pleasure also to introduce Professor D. St. James, Deputy Vice Chancellor. The writing is Academic Affairs. And I have the pleasure to introduce to you Dr. H. Motaba, the Director, PUAP. We have amongst us the BPO. Those ones have already been introduced. These are the only names which have been given. I don't know whether we do have others who have been left out. We have also Professor Mbulawa, Vice Chancellor of Buang University. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We welcome you, distinguished guests, also members of the Biust community, and students who have come to join us here today. I would now like to welcome distinguished Professor Dennis Sigina, our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, to come and give the welcoming remarks for this STEM festival.
Thank you. Good morning. Which one is better? I guess this one is better, right? Okay. Lumena. Welcome to Biust. This is the third time that we're organizing this event. I am so pleased to see a number of very distinguished guests attending and present. So let me say that all protocol is observed. This event started about 3 years ago. The first one was held in Gaborone, the second in Francistown, and this is the third. It's growing by leaps and bounds. It's a great pleasure for us to see a child grow at this rate. The good it does for the country, not only for this university, but for the country at large, is immense. When you see young minds really grasping what science means, when you see young minds really excited by science and technology and what it can do for the country and for the economy, I mean science and technology, they understand that. And they can understand also the contribution they can make to it by their own commitment. That's a great step forward. We are pleased that we initiated this effort and we are leading it. I hope that in the coming years it will grow in scope. It will become really a cornerstone of the understanding of the country when it comes to science and technology. I must mention our many sponsors and stakeholders. I don't want to name them one by one, it will take a long time because the list is growing and it's very long at this stage. So I would like to say to all of them, thank you. A heartfelt thanks in terms of your support, in terms of the experiments that some of you set up. Thank you for all the high school students. Thank you for our faculty. Thank you to our sister institutions for participating in this event, in particular one and the UB. Many, many thanks are due to everybody. So if I start naming everybody individually, it will probably take another 15 to 20 minutes, so I won't do it. Again, thank you. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your stay. Enjoy the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished Professor Sigina, just highlighting there the growth that we've experienced with this initiative and the expected impact that we would like to have with this initiative. I will be inviting to the stage next Dr. Haniso Mothabane, who's the Director for Pre-University and Academic Affairs, who will speak on the subject of catching them young in terms of STEM and what we hope to achieve in our program.
All protocol observed. Let me take this moment just to give a little glimpse of what we mean by catching young and how that affects youth. We may be wondering, are they still that young when they come to Biust? But we are saying no. Biust will be what it ought to be, only if it creates a very strong, a very robust pipeline of students that are coming right from kindergarten or even preschool to the level when they can now come to Biust. Now we have several programs which are premised on the fact that when they are young, they are able to learn anything. Anything. When they're 2 years, 3 years old, they will tell you that they want to go to the sun. They don't know it's very hot, but they will tell you how to get to the sun. You ask them how you get there, they will tell you whatever they think. That means they have the eagerness to want to get there, to do anything. Unfortunately, it's our systems which get to degrade their thinking level. Because when they suggest things like wanting to go to the sun, instead of us telling them how they can get around the sun or towards the sun and how far they probably can, we tell them they're mad or something like that. Then they get afraid of trying things. We have established a program that links Biust directly to the learners while they're still young. We call this program Science Circuses. We've established other programs. I'm not going to go into the details about the Science Circus. Other programs such as the inquiry-based learning. We are saying since at that age, very early age, they have a lot of questions and they're asking. That should be the method of teaching that we should use, which is premised on inquiry, on the inquisitiveness that is already there, naturally there in them. Now we're working with 2 primary schools within our area here. One of the schools is called Manaledi. Manaledi is a school about 40 kilometers to the east in the Japong area. We are going to demonstrate here something they've learned, or at least their views about how they should learn. We are also working with a school here in Palape, the Serome Primary School, who have actually attested to the kind of improvements that they see in their school, in the sciences and mathematics particularly, on the basis of the methods that they're using now. They are working with the kids, and they don't necessarily, the teacher doesn't necessarily go into start teaching, but it starts from a basis of what the kids know. They play with soil, they play with leaves, they play with things, and a lot of questions come up and the teachers are building on those kind of questions. That method has proved to be tremendous. In fact, I'm not the right person to talk about it. These 2 schools were supposed to be the ones that talk about it. Now, the intention of me standing here was not necessarily to lecture on the inquiry-based learning, but to usher in Manaledi kids to come and present here. Manaledi, where are they? Yes, Manaledi. Oh, that doesn't look like Manaledi. Yes, Manaledi, come in and make your presentation, please. I thought you would have been seated somewhere close here so that now, Manaledi is presenting a panel of students. I don't want to preempt what they are going to tell you. I don't know, but they will tell you something. Yeah.
Asur podium mo isira ba holo. What quality? What quality? What are we going? Yeah.
Right. I guess you can start.
Good day everyone. I'm the host today. Today I have very important guys in my studio. Without wasting any time, let ask them to introduce themselves.
Good day everyone. My name is Sepangashi. I am deputy school head in Manali Primary School. As the head of academics, I am responsible for the daily learning of children in my school. Good day everyone. My name is Sepangashi. I am the Minister of Academics in Manali Primary School. I am in standard 6.
Greetings everyone. My name is Bosilo Silas, a school mentorship chairperson from the same school. Wow.
My last have highlighted a very good aspect academics. I understand that I am deputy school head, Minister of Academics and Management. A good collaboration in that. Thank you for raising my show. So, Ms. Kashima, tell audience about strategies you have in your school, which help your school to perform very well.
Mr. Patel, as a school, we used to have bad results in science and math. Ever since we introduced inquiry method of learning, our learners have been learning very well.
Ms. Kashima, what is inquiry and how does it improve results?
Mr. Patel, inquiry is one of the best teaching methods which we are using today. With this method, you will experience wonders because it's the method which develops learners' interest and responsibility towards learning. Inquiry helps learners to discover concepts for themselves. They work together to come to a solution of the given problems. It is very good because it also reduces teachers' load. Teachers do not have to pour knowledge on learners. Inquiry gives learners the chance to acquire knowledge for themselves. Learners who are exposed to this method develop intellectual, become critical thinker and independent learners. They are always serious to learn because they are learning with hands.
Ms. Kashima, what is responsibility of teachers now if it looks like all work is done by them?
Teachers play a very important role in this method. They work as facilitators, assist in the organization needed by inquiry method of learning. He or she will always be there to help. Thank you.
Mr. Abusilo, you mentioned that you are the mentorship from Manali Primary School. What can you say from the website by the deputy school head?
Thank you to Dr. As a school mentor, my responsibility is to support school to improve the result. So I have realized that with inquiry, with this inquiry method, you will see learners asking for materials from parents. As parents, we support learners with materials needed at school. We give them some food stuff or used materials. As parents, we did not understand why learners keep on asking for these materials until our teachers explain it to us. I have realized that with inquiry, learners are more involved in learning than listening. So I am telling you, we started improve results since 2016.
Oh, I see that you believe that inquiry is #1 method of teaching. Let me now talk to the Minister of Academics. Ms. Kashima, what can you say from the website by the deputy school head and the mentorship?
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Sir, I am the Minister of Academics for our school representative council. Sir, we used to be reluctant to learning,
Some of us we were bored by schoolwork because we could not understand concepts. Right now, since the introduction of this inquiry, we are able to choose activities for lesson presentation. We are not allowed to cram items taught by teachers. We are given the power to think and explore things. There is a saying we say, tell me I forget, involve me I remember. So this inquiry enables us to understand concepts. Thank you.
Ms. Kashim, what can you say about the future of those children who use inquiry?
Thank you, Mr. Putel. The future is bright for them. You see, science is an ongoing process of investigating things around us in order to improve our lives. So, since this inquiry, learners are allowed to think, we will end up being researchers, engineers, inventors, pilots, and doctors. All those good kind of jobs you can think so. Thank you.
Thank you, the Minister of Academics. Deputy School Head, in conclusion, what advice can you give to those who struggling with exam?
Thank you, Mr. Patel. My advice to them is just simple. They should use inquiry method of learning. If you look at my school in science and math, and now they have changed. Science 2016, 16.7% AB and 66.7% ABC. Math 66.7% AB and 83.7% ABC. In 2017, Science 75% AB and 75% ABC. Math 75% AB and 75% ABC. Now you can really see that inquiry is doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for your educative discussion I had with you. I hope everyone has learned a lot from this discussion. Your partnership with Biust has really helped you. We hope to see engineers coming from your school. Thank you.
That is Banaledi Primary School. They truly enjoy what they do. As you heard from them, they feel liberated. They can think, they can ask, they can do things. I'm sure somewhere in the hall they display more. They should be having a few projects that I showed, which are coming or which are done by the students, including the preschool there. Now, the whole essence of this approach is to ensure that we capture or we recognize, the intelligence, the innate intelligence that is in the kids, and we build on the basis of that. What we are saying, as we try to say to Magana, all of us can be scientists, is that yes, the capability is there. All of us are born with brains, and all we need to do is to mine it, to determine the extent to which we can use it. Then great things can come. Now, we are involved with many schools, even junior secondary schools, senior secondary schools, and obviously the programs are different, varying on the level at which we are. Now, we believe in a few years' time, these kind of students or kids who are liberated in mind, when they come to use, it's not a question of reading anything to them. It's a question of them saying, I'm going to use because there's something that I want to discover. And that's what they're going to learn what? Alone, self-learning. If we stop so far, it was a Manaledi Primary School show, not mine. Thank you very much.
heard Dr. Matabane talking there about taking advantage of the natural curiosity of children and nurturing it so that they may become innovators and inventors. Thank you, Manaledi Primary School. I don't think it's coincidental that that is the name of the school. Yeah. Such bright and shining stars. I would now like to invite Martin, the mad scientist, who is from Science Time TV program in Kampala, Uganda, and the chemistry team from Biust to give us a few demonstrations before we get ready for our guests of honor today.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm Martin, the math scientist, and I'm going to expand some gases here. So we can wait for some few minutes as we wind up with the arrangements here.
Mona, what is that? Is that paraffin or water?
Yeah, this is water. Yeah. I'm sure we'll be delayed by something small, but we're working on it. Okay?
Are you sure it's water?
Yeah, they are speaking. So, well, as they bring the lighter, I come from Kampala. I'm a biotechnologist, but also a science communicator. I have a TV program on the national television every Saturday, where I just engage my audience in unforgettable learning experiences that make science fun. So that's what I do. And as we get the lighter, I think you'll try to learn some science here, but in an amazing way. And maybe in case you have questions, you ask me at the end of the show. So let's be attentive. I'm going to do something here. Let's try things here. There we are. We have it right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not used to this, so I'm using to some kind of a lighter. So let's hope things will work out. So well, I'm getting rocks, and you see here, this is a small bottle for soft water, so for soft drink anyway, like Coca-Cola or any other soft drink, and I'm putting rocks. Already there is some water, so I'm putting some rocks, and you want to see what will happen. Okay, let's see what will happen. Some can fit, others can't fit. Of course, you are seeing some reaction here. Putting some cloth on top. Gas should not go outside, okay? So. Wow! I hope that was fun! I hope that was fun. So we go on. I'll explain later. So now let's try. I think you can see this. You can see this writing here. Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Oh, sorry. So let's move on. Moving on.
rocks again.
So we're moving on. Let's try this and see. Oh my goodness, things are happening. Yeah, I don't have the later, so things Oh, so I think we can leave. I think we can leave because we can't do it. The lighter failed, so I think we shall do in another show. But of course, I was expecting to have all these pumpkins exploding. Okay, so we've been let down by the lighter, so I think we should have in another show. Okay? Yeah. Unfortunately, I molded these in a small way, so this can't enter. Thank you very much. Okay, so no worries, please. Don't worry, it's safe. Very safe, please, don't worry. Yeah, it's very safe, don't worry. You want to put it up? Yeah, you can come and push from here.
Push your mic.
From there.
Good morning. I think we just said with managing primary school that learning these days is supposed to be problem-solving based. We have Biust is a more practical university. Students are more engaged than the teacher. And we're going to show a case here and the science that is around us. Okay, when I was growing up, when we wake up in the morning, we have to prepare a fire, and sometimes there will be no firewood or there will be no matches. So you have to go next door to go and collect some, you know, some fire stick from your neighbors, so that you can come light up your fire. But at the same time, we reared chickens and goats, and we used to have some chemicals that were there in our house. You know, for example, potash. We all know potash that you give to your chickens when your chickens are sick. And we all know of pure glycerin. Some of us who grew up back in the days, we used to use pure glycerin to put into our moisturizing lotion. But you realize that these chemicals, they can also play another role in our homes, okay, to help us achieve what we want to achieve at that particular moment. So today we're going to show you that with the help of potash, okay, and with the help of just pure glycerin, you can actually, you know, prepare fire so that you can cook whatever you want to cook at that particular moment. This is a very, very safe experiment. Okay? The fire is not that of a hazard. Okay? The one that we're going to make today. So we actually wanted a primary school student or a secondary school student to take part in this experiment. So anybody who can come take part? Yes, please. It's a very quick experiment, straightforward, using household chemicals. Okay? Alright, so you have to put on a lab coat, safety precautions, and safety goggles. Yeah, we'll then also explain the chemistry behind this reaction. Okay, what is potash and what is glycerin? And what happens when you add glycerin to potash? Alright? So use this is what we call the spatula. So you scoop with the spatula a little bit of the potash, and you put it on that white plate. Fair enough. Okay? So you are trying to prepare fire in a way. This will be your firewood. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Okay? And then you take your pure glycerin. By the way, we can also use other chemicals in place of glycerin. We'll explain later about those chemicals. So just open pure glycerin. Then just pour just a little bit. You don't have to pour the whole thing in there. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Okay? So while that reaction is taking place, you go ahead and you prepare your pots, you know, the dishes, you wash them, and then you wait for the reaction. Okay? Now this one might fail. Okay? But anyway, while we wait for the reaction to take place, potash is simply potassium permanganate, which is a strong oxidizing agent. Okay, when it reacts with, there you go, there you go, there you go, and then the fire. Okay, and then the fire. Yes. So like I was saying, potassium permanganate is a very strong oxidizing agent. So what it does is it reacts with glycerin. Glycerin is simply a hydrocarbon. Okay. So it reacts with glycerin, it produces lots and lots of heat. Okay? And then this heat is strong enough such that in the presence of oxygen, then it can be ignited. And then you have fire. You can also use things like brake fluid. Okay? Now, the next experiment. We all know that the world is moving towards clean fuels. Okay? We all know that nowadays we have electric cars. We also have what we call the hydrogen cell fuels. You know, there are such vehicles. And they even have like around 40 such hydrogen gas fuel stations in the USA. So today we're going to show you that this small experiment, it produces no byproduct. Okay, it produces water. And we're going to show you why hydrogen is being used as a substitute for fuel. Because Hydrogen produces such tremendous energy that can be able to be converted into electrical energy. We have seen space crafts using hydrogen, and nowadays it's even in cars. So what happens is hydrogen reacts with oxygen to produce water, and then accompanied with that reaction, a huge amount of energy is produced, and that's what we are interested in, that amount of energy. Okay? So I would like everyone to pay attention to this experiment because you might miss. Okay? It occurs in a split second. It occurs in a split second, so we need to pay much attention. So in this okay.
Lira.
We'll explain later.
That's not very
All right, so pay attention, please. Okay, another one. That's the effect we were looking for, actually. Okay? So what happens is when you mix hydrogen and oxygen, okay, it produces that loud bang, because what happens is that tremendous energy in the form of heat. The surrounding air is cooler. So when it suddenly expands, it causes that explosion. Okay, the byproduct is only water. Thank you.
Thank you to Martin, the mad scientist, for his successful and semi-successful experiments. Thank you to the Biust team, Dr. Jinake and your team from chemistry who had some demonstrations for us. I don't know if Dr. Jinake is trying to trip over our guest of honor, who is from VPC, by talking about clean energy. But we will wait for the contribution from Mr. Stefan Schwarz-Fischer, who is now going to be introduced by the Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Otofenswe Toton.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, Dr. Levani, the VIPs who are here, all protocol of the Bimelam Barrage. It is indeed my singular honor to be here this morning to give an overview on this very important activity that has been ongoing for a number of years now. It is here for a purpose, and I'm going to take you through why STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Why STEM? But before I go into answering that question, it is important for me to take you through the memory lane to explain exactly what we are as a university and why we stand for and why we are interested in hosting an activity like STEM, not only for our students here at Biust, but traversing the whole country, talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There is a reason why that has been done. And I'm going to make a short presentation so that you can have an appreciation of the STEM background. This is why we have this university called Biust. It was created for a purpose. Let me put it like this. Botswana is a mineral-dependent country. The minerals or natural resources will never be there forever. They are finite. And for us to survive after the depletion of our natural resources, we need to do something. And that is something is to help the nation transform or transition from a natural-based economy, natural resources-based economy, to a more knowledge-based economy or a more diversified economy. It wouldn't come by itself. There has to be some kind of a catalyst. We have been looking at the chemists here, making all kinds of demonstrations. Even in an economy, there has to be a catalytic effect to ensure that this reaction of a transformation goes even at a faster pace from where we are to a desired state. And the nation learned very quickly that for you to engage on that journey, you need to establish a university like Biust. That has got a specific focus, which is science, engineering, and mathematics. So we have a very high responsibility as a national university with a focused mandate, focused mission, to ensure that whatever comes out of this place will help the nation to transition from where it is to a desired state called a diversified economy. There is another imperative why as Biust we are set up. For many years, the nation was training many young Botswana, mainly in the English-speaking countries, in Australia, in the UK, in the US, at a cost. And the nation could only set a limited number of these young people to those countries to study STEM subjects. It came at a cost, and it was very expensive for the government of this country. The alternative was, which was a strategic move, strategic alternative, let us establish a university of our own that will have a clear focus on science, engineering, and technology. So instead of sending 5 students to the UK and America and Canada, we can train 100 or 200 students now in our environment here in Botswana. And the results are already coming out. This year, we graduated more than 200 students in the STEM subject. So it was a very important strategic move by the government of Botswana to ensure that we have a critical mass of young scientists and engineers who can drive the economy of this country. The third imperative, before I go on with my slides. If you look at the developmental phases of this country, there is a concentration, there is a node. There is a node in the south of this country called Gaborone, and there is another node in the north of this country called Francistown. You have a number of economic activities in those 2 centers. And they attract industries, they give employment to our people, and there is a lot of economic activity. In the middle of the country, there was nothing. Okay, there was Palape, but it didn't have the critical number of economic activities that can attract some of Botswana to be employed in the different industries. And I think it was again a strategic move to say, let us establish a university in the middle of the country so that it can also have a catalytic effect on economic development now in the middle of the country. So we are going to have 3 nodes. Abroni, Halape, Francistown as the major economic activities in this country. And we have a dream. The dream of us as the people of Halape is to have this city as an industrial city of Botswana. And we are going to achieve it. Because of the presence of Biust, it acts as a magnet. We start having malls that are springing up. We start having industrial activities setting up in Halape so that they can supply the university with this, with that. And it is causing all kinds of excitement. And I think as Halape, we think it will be the third city in this country, our home Halape. So, because of what I've just said, this is quite important that we must have what Ramutavani has talked about earlier on, inquiry-based learning, but here at Biust, it is PBL, problem-based learning. And we just present the problem to our young learners and challenge them and facilitate so that they can tackle that problem from various angles. I think we have moved away from the traditional way of teaching, and it is PBL now which is in place that we have employed here to make a difference. Remember that as Biust, we have a motto to say we are driving change. And how do you drive change if you don't present anything that is different? PBL is what we use. We forge strong linkages with businesses, industries, professionals, the public sector, and it is for a purpose to produce work-ready graduates. Work-ready graduates. We don't want our young people when they graduate from Biust. When they knock at BPC or BTCL or at Botswana, they say, where do they come from? I want Dr. Stefan Swashfiger to be part and parcel of the training of our young people, so that by the time when they graduate and they knock at his door, he would have been part of our preparation. And he wouldn't say, where do they come from? In a similar way, that is why we are interested in pre-primary, in primary and secondary school education in the STEM subjects, so that when they are being prepared, we wouldn't say, where do they come from? We were part and parcel to ignite that excitement, that enthusiasm in our young people, so that by the time when they apply to Biust and they knock at our doors, we wouldn't say, where do they come from? We know where they come from. We can attest to the science background. We can say they are prepared to be engineers because they've been given a foundation that we respect, a foundation that is adequate for them to become chemical engineers, to become telecommunication engineers, to become material scientists, to become forensic scientists, all kinds of disciplines that require that you must have a good foundation in the sciences. Let me move on. That is our STEM. It is an acronym: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is what we are focusing on. And I have said it, they are a very important building blocks, essential components of what we want to achieve as a nation, to be a knowledge-based economy, to be a more diversified economy. And we want to achieve this because given that in almost every part of the world, competence in STEM is often marginal. Nations, Botswana included, now deliberately and assiduously inculcate in their learners an appreciation, interest, and the lifelong engagement in STEM. I think with us, it is very clear that for us to be at this desired state called a diversified economy, the basis has to be STEM. We have learned from many nations. You go to Europe, you go to Asia, you go to the Americas. The most successful nations have invested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you go higher into research, you can even start talking about other matrices, like gross expenditure on research and development, GERD, and is an index. Is an index, is a matrix that you can use to say how well are we doing in terms of investment in R&D, so that truly we can help the nation to transform from where it is to a more diversified economy. There is an expectation, colleagues, if you didn't know it, that 5 years, 10 years from now, the government will look at us and say, what has come out of the research efforts that we have invested on at Biust, at Buang, at Bit3, at NAVTEC, at BIA? There is an expectation that products and services will come out that can be uptaken by Botswana, to run the small startup companies, to make money, to employ others, so that truly we can emulate other nations. I mentioned earlier on the United Kingdom. It doesn't have diamonds, it doesn't have gold, but it has one of the most diversified economy in this world. And it has got one of the most stable economies. Ask yourself questions, what do they do? It is because they have diversification in real terms, in practical terms. And if you invest in the UK on this currency called sterling pound, it is one of the most stable currencies. It is because the economy is stable and it is the most diversified. What a dream. I think as a nation we have to keep on dreaming. And I think one day we will get there so that we can make this nation very proud. We can do it for our children. We can do it for our parents. We can do it for our families. We can do it for the government. We can do it for everybody who matters. Now, let me get to STEM now in a more focused manner after giving you this background, which I think we all needed. We started in 2015, and we have been hosting festivals like the one that we are going to have today. In various parts of this nation, that's where we have been holding STEM. As the name indicates, STEM festivals are events at which innovations and inventions are acknowledged, celebrated, and nurtured. To me, this is very important. We cannot have scientists and engineers and inventors and innovators hidden somewhere in a corner. They need to come out. They need to be given a platform like the one that we have now, so that they can showcase the different products and services, creativities, ways of creations, inventions, innovations, so that they can enthuse all of us, so that the business people could be looking at them and say, where can we make a business out of these inventions that we see? STEM festivals has provided a platform and a forum for innovators, inventors, researchers, they're all here, academics from all walks of life, to showcase their inventions, concepts, blueprints, and products. As they exhibit their inventions and innovative products at the Biust STEM festivals, businesses and even venture capitalists are keeping a close eye on how they can invest in those inventions. So it is not just inventions or innovations just for the fun of it. It is there for a purpose, so that I want Botswana to make money out of this. I want them to create employment. I want them to cause excitement so that they can live neck to neck with our competitor institutions like the one that we have here at Biust. The Biust Festival are therefore a meeting place for those with invention ideas, to meet those with money to invest in those ideas and putative products. It is for this reason that the theme of the 2018 STEM Festival is STEM-driven economy, transforming research into profitable products and services. As the Chief Executive Officer of this university, Biust, highly specialized public university, I go around and challenge my colleagues that I know, I've been one, a professor in my own right, that we get excited when I publish a paper in this journal or in that journal, and I get a reward, a personal reward, to be elevated from where I am to become a senior lecturer, an associate professor, and a professor. It's a good thing for me. But beyond just me as a professor, there's even a much important task that all of us have to live to, that we must take now those research results beyond just papers. They must be taken into the far end of the innovation spectrum, which is products and commercialization. And I'm not just speaking bad about my peers here who are doctors and professors. They normally just stop there at publications, and they go around and sit on that pedestal, and they look down on everyone because they have ascended and they have achieved. No, we are there for a purpose, and we must come down that pedestal and come up now with products and services that can answer questions for ordinary people in Malachi, in Douglas number 1 and number 2, in Mobi, in Box Pits. And once you do that, you know that you have now arrived, and you can go around with the chest out as a professor because you are now making a difference in our communities.
Very good.
Now, the STEM stakeholders, currently the STEM stakeholders at Biust are the government departments, parastatal institutions, the private sector, and over this time, I think the list will increase. Their achievements, a number of them, we have been going around in this nation and preaching STEM. And I must applaud the pre-university academic program department because they are our ambassadors. They are the face of this. They go around the country talking to our young people, causing all kinds of excitement, enticing them, exciting them, igniting them to say science can be done. And they encourage them. They tell them it is possible. They will just look at that VC, he comes from a small village in Kamwat and look at him, he's a professor and a scientist. If we can do it, you can do it also. There's nothing special about me. Look at Ramasu, he comes somewhere from a village not far from here. And he is a CEO of Betri and he's a professor also. If these two people can make it, it is not impossible. You must do it like that to give these young people living example of ordinary folks who went to school on barefoot. What's in a uniform? But look where we are. We are not special. That's all what I'm trying to say. And we must go around preaching to our young people in the remotest corner of this country that they can make it.
Yeah.
They can make it. And here we are, and we are saying it. So this is what the number of participants. They have touched everyone from 2015. Look at this. In total, 84,548. They also do ICT training. I was at Mokopanamuswe where actually this was put into display. Young people really being, you know, like they did here from Manalej. And you see those young people from the remotest corner of this country, from Tabala, from Mokorosi, be on top of the ICT that we pride ourselves so much with. It does something to you. And that's what we want to do. We have to keep on doing it. You see these teachers who were going through the hardest task of preparing registers and reports by hand. And it would take them weeks and weeks, and then with a calculator punching like this, to calculate the averages so that they can arrange these kids as for number 1, number 2, number 3. And doing that in 10 minutes. It does something to you. And I think that has to continue. And if we can do that as Biust, truly we can drive change and we can be a pride of this nation. This is what some of the districts that have been covered, I think, and I know they were in this district where somebody comes from. I didn't influence it. They were in the Hawana, Molapa, Ojang, Matete, Kanye, and they were there out of their own. I don't determine their schedule. They decide on that program. And they have done wonders. People talk to me in Matangwani to say the Biust team is doing a wonderful job. This is now the program. There will be here exhibitions, displays, seminars, shows, symposium, demonstration shows, and there will also be a chance to interact with investors. And the members of the public will also be here with us. They are allowed to do the interaction as well as the press. And I urge you all to fully participate in the Biust STEM Festival 2018 as we appreciate the local talent of innovation and invention displayed here. Please have a wonderful day and enjoy yourself. And keep your minds ignited for the rest of the week. Thank you very much. The next item is to introduce to the podium our guest speaker for this event, and is none other than Dr. Stefan Fischer, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Botswana Power Corporation since November 2016 to date. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Power Corporation. He is a qualified engineer in metallurgy and materials, having worked in companies that constructed, operated, and maintained gas and thermal power plants. Stefan is no stranger to commercial power production from various energy sources. Stefan has held executive management roles in global consulting companies and has helped transform and elevate the fortunes of organizations in both the private and public sectors. With this background, he is well placed to excel in his current mandate of BPC and to succeed in delivering superior results through execution of the BPC MASA 2020 transformation strategy. This will be pivotal to building BPC into a strategic regional player in the energy sector. Among his key priorities, he is particularly passionate about developing renewable power generation in Botswana. To this extent, he has the onerous challenge of growing renewable energy in Botswana to contribute up to 25% of the country's power mix. As part of the strategy to increase connection rates and access to affordable electricity, especially in the rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Stefan Swas Fisher to the podium. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, no, everybody is looking at the watch. Okay, so I try to speed up and not to waste a lot of your time. Dear distinguished guest, Honorable Vice Chancellor, I think I wish you all a very good morning, and I think with that all protocols are served. As all CEOs, and especially the one from Parastatal, I prepared a nice speech. So, if you don't mind, and I also welcome the media, you can have a copy of that speech later on, but unfortunately I will not stick to it. And the reason why I'm not sticking to that is when I look at the atmosphere we are experiencing right now in this room, I think we've got two somehow generations in one room. The young generation, which we so heavily applauded just a few minutes ago, and who did a tremendous job. I think if you would come to government in 20 years' time, you already know political protocol very, very well. And you showed that experience. So I congratulate you to that performance. And then we've got probably the students here. And what I would like to do is I would like to address the students more than I address the professors later on. And then of course we've got the university here. And then probably the oldest ones, who surprisingly seem to be CEOs of either the university or a parastatal like BPC. So I don't want to stick or to emphasize on the great achievements this university has done in the past, but probably more emphasize on what we need to bring Botswana forward. I think the agenda has been publicized, and I think it's all well known that Botswana needs to change somehow. We've got a lot of diamond reserves and resources. We've got coal reserves as well. And you know that our power stations, probably B and A, are more or less around the corner, including the mine. So that means with the power stations and the mine, I think in this area we are the major employee of that area. But as you said, quite correctly by Vice Chancellor. I think these are limited resources. Even so, Botswana has got a lot of coal and will probably last quite a while, but nevertheless these are on the one hand limited resources, and on the other hand they are not very good for the environment, especially when it comes to CO2 emissions. So that means now we need to change that. In order to change that, we need to have the right people to make that change. And that means we need to educate them, we need to train them, and also we need to make an effort now to move away from our traditional way of learning, educating people, and to a more modern, solution-driven way of educating our students. Because to be frankly honest, it's of no use to any private sector, especially to BPC, if we just pump knowledge into our students, which we then at some stage rehearse, and then they come to BPC and think because they've got this knowledge, they know the world. Now unfortunately reality on the ground is a little bit different, and the expectations we have to the students is a different one as well. But I think there's a lack of communication, I think, and we need to improve that jointly to overcome that lack of communication. So what are our expectations as a private sector to our future engineers? Because I think the world of Botswana will be driven by our engineers, and they will be process driven. And unfortunately, I disagree a little bit with you, Vice Chancellor. I think it's not polite, but I don't think that employment will come out of the new build malls, because you just spend money, and a lot of people spend money, but the value chain then says a few people gain money out of and profit out of that. But what we need to create is a more diverse economy where a lot more people actually create wealth in the country. And that means in the past this has been a diamond, which is a raw stone or gem in the ground with more or less, sorry Botswana now, with no value. And then we bring that up, and then we do something with this stone, shape it into a diamond, and then all of a sudden that gets a value. And during that process we stimulate employment and we increase wealth for the country. And it's actually the same with power generation. We just take a piece of coal, burn it, and as some people say, to produce electricity is quite easy. So we just produce electricity out of that. But by doing that, we create employment in the mining sector, we create employment in the power sector as well. And now we need to shift that. We can't, on an endless term, just generate diamonds, and we can't generate on an endless term just coal, power out of coal. So we need to have a different mindset now, different skills for our students. And that means now, as the environment has changed, our processes has changed, our students now, the first thing I would like to address, they need to be more solution-driven. And what I mean with solution-driven, if you've got a problem as a student, it's not enough, at least for the private sector, just to know that problem and probably to have the knowledge. You need to bring a solution forward. So it's not enough just to show in your CV that you have studied at a nice university. When you come to BPC, you need to address the issue of what is your added value? What do you really bring to the table? We've seen too many, and I'm a little bit, let's try bad guy, good guy here. So you obviously need to encourage people, and I need to bring them back to reality. And let's play that role just for argument's sake now. And don't worry, I take the blame for it. But what do I mean with that? Of course, we need to have encouraged employees. Yes, that is right. But on the other hand, at some stage, they need to add value to a company. They need to bring something in addition which we don't have. We don't employ people just to employ them. And I think this is something which we need to get our heads around. We don't employ cleaners just to stand around and don't do any cleaning. We don't employ engineers, and now I'm coming to the issue here, to sit in a room having a white shirt, a nice tie, and after the first year of employment they're asking for a secretary. This is not the engineer we are looking for. The engineer BPC is looking for is who unrolls his jacket, and sorry I did that when I was young, now I need to be too polite here. Go to the ground, make your hands dirty, like the guys we've seen in the past minutes. Make your hands dirty and talk to the people on the ground and gain experience from them. And the reason why I'm saying that, that's extremely important. First, you need to go on site because you don't have a clue of an idea what you're actually doing. And then the second thing is gain the experience of the older. There are a lot of people, at least within the BPC environment, who are working for BPC for 20, 30, and last year was only someone with 50 years work experience in BPC. And don't try as a young engineer to tell the 40 or 50-year-old guy who worked his lifetime on the ground for BPC to tell him what to do. He knows that much better than the young engineer. So just try to shift that around and try to learn as much as possible from the eldest. And then at some stage you become probably a team leader or a manager. And then you can have earned your stripes actually to tell other people what to do. And that brings me to the next subject, which is discipline. Before you tell people what to do, or before you manage or try to manage people what to do, discipline for yourself and for others is crucial in the private sector. And before you actually, and you need to be aware of it once you step out of that cozy environment of university into the private sector. So the first thing you need to learn is actually, before you give instructions, you need to learn how to obey orders. And this is what you are going to do within the private sector within the first 3 years. And you should be aware of that. And the reason why I'm extremely emphasizing on that subject is BBC had a lot of internship. So in general we've got 24 internships per year. And I think we should use this venue as probably a new starting line for the university and BBC to start a new internship cooperation between BBC and the university. And I think that's quite crucial. So that on the one hand, of course, when I'm selfish, BBC can gain some experience from the university and the research you're doing. And on the other hand, the students can gain some practical experience of what they're doing on the ground and how the private sector is doing it. Just to give you an example of what I mean with this, it's just the small things which you observe when you're working in the private sector. So we had the two demonstrations about fire here. If you go to the private sector and you would start an event like this, the share manager would step up and first of all say, ladies and gentlemen, we will have fire. It's going to be noisy. The problem is the people who have got a problem with their ears, please cover your ears. And the emergency exit, and what is blocked by the media now, is actually to the left and to the right, and the toilets are probably up there. This is standard procedure in the private sector. And you need to stick to that. And the fire extinguisher is probably somewhere near to the podium to cut the speaker off if he talks to it. I mean, so having said that, and please don't misunderstand me, this was not a blame for the organization, not blaming the organization. It was just sharing this kind of different cultures which we have and which we need, an academic environment always needs to have this free culture. And unfortunately, the private sector, especially when you work in the security of supply sector, we need to be more disciplined, more focused. Because if we blow up Rugby B, I can tell you the noise you hear during that blow will be larger than the one we heard this morning. And we need to avoid by any means that this is going to happen. So there need to be procedures in place to make that happen. And we need to train our young engineers especially on this kind of procedures and what we are actually doing. And then the next thing I would like to address is the environment, at least, and we see that in BPC quite heavily, has changed for all our engineers. In former times, it was enough when you needed to do a quality check on coal or on limestone, that you know the chemistry of coal and you know the chemistry of limestone. Nowadays, quite honestly, from a practical point of view, nobody cares about the chemistry of coal and limestone anymore. There's a nice box, take the coal, put it into that box. A minute later, the box tells you these are the ingredients of the coal. So I don't need anybody anymore who can do it the real traditional way. But I need someone who knows our policies, our procedures, how often he needs to do these coal checks, how he can train others to do those lovely books. This is what we need. Then in former time we wrote everything down on paper. Nowadays we don't do that anymore, and we don't use a calculator anymore. Most of the things we use is actually Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So we expect our engineers who come to the table to be fully equipped with a tool set of they need to know how Microsoft Word, Excel, or PowerPoint is working. And I mean properly working. And not just like, yes, I know how to punch a number into that cell. It should be a little bit more high sophisticated than what I'm just saying. And so processing information in the future for BPC becomes crucial. Our engineers need to know how this data they are creating somewhere in the system and what they're working on will run through the whole system, and how we are processing this data in the future. The advantage of an engineer, and I'm not quite sure if everybody is aware of that, engineers are the faculty that is always thinking in processes. So it's much easier for an engineer to adapt to that than for an accountant, for example. But nevertheless, it's crucial that you do that. Communication is getting more and more crucial in our life. And just for the students, when I mean we need to communicate better in the future, I don't mean that you are used to Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp. This is not proper communication. Proper communication is also not to write a 20-page report on something which you can summarize in one page. So you need to know which are the critical information in mainly your stakeholders. It doesn't matter if it's a CEO, it's a board, if it's your superior, someone needs to make a profound decision in order to move forward. So you need to learn that, and I think the best way to learn it, and it's just an offer now to you, Vice Chancellor, is with a combined effort between the private sector and the university, so that we exchange students from time to time. They come to our place, they can probably do some studies, they can write some kind of a report, you can pick up the theme, and we are introducing them a little bit to to the work environment of the private sector. Coming back to the work environment of a private sector, which is a little bit more disciplined than the environment most students are used to. I would like to share some example with you. 10 years ago, I worked for another company, and we used to hire internships every year. So we always hired 50 internships, and they always came at some stage into a meeting room like this, or an auditorium. And they were always addressed by the managing director like me. And the first time I did that, I welcomed them, I very warmly welcomed them. I encouraged them, they all came out of school, and I encouraged them now to really blossom and do something good for their lives. And I came with an attitude, really repeating myself, of encouraging people. This was probably the worst speech I ever had. And because I'm not quite sure if they took me seriously or not seriously, but as a result of that, these 50 interns came always late. At the final end, they came drunk to work, they came drunk to work, and their performance and their marks they got were extremely low. So half of them didn't even survive, and we fired them in the meantime. So what was the lesson learned? The next year, someone prepared a speech for me as well, like this one. And of course, I appreciate always the work of the people who prepare the speeches, don't worry. It's quite a huge effort. And in the second year, it's the same speech. And I looked at them, well, this speech is actually useless. Look at the results. We needed to fire 50% of the internship because they didn't perform, they didn't have any discipline, they didn't come to work at 8 when they're supposed to come. And a lot of these guys on Wednesday, and it was always party time, on Wednesday was party time, so on Thursday they came drunk to work. What's the use of it? So the next year I just did it differently and said, when everybody of you will only survive if you don't come late. You get 3 warnings of coming late, otherwise you are out. I never expect you to be drunk, otherwise you are out. And I don't expect you to be drugged, otherwise you are out. And your marks should only be between A and B, otherwise you are out. 100% of them survived, and all of them graduated with A and B. So what is the lesson learned? For me it was, kindness is not always a friend. And sorry for saying that, sometimes the youngsters, and I know that from my kids, sometimes youngsters need to be shaped. You need to do that in a fair manner, yes of course, but they need to be shaped and they need to learn discipline. Because this is what the private sector at some stage is requesting from you. And it's of no use if you come undisciplined to the private sector and then you will be kicked out immediately after that. And then you have this nice discussion in the future. I've got a lovely CV, I've got a lovely degree, but nobody is employing me. Why not? Because it's probably this lack of discipline which you showed to your first employee. And unfortunately, Botswana is a small country. So that means, unfortunately, the CEOs of the companies are talking to each other. So we know quite well who is good and who is not good. And I can assure you the HR managers are doing that in much more detail than I do. So we've got a quite good understanding who has got the right discipline. Next thing, which is extremely important to us, is commitment to work. Just stated that before. Just to come to work and leave after 6 hours or 8 hours, it's of no use to be PC. You need to bring something to the table. And yes, we are a parastatal, and yes, we've got a reputation to be lazy. Yes, I know that. Don't worry, we need to be frankly and open. But When you come to BPC nowadays, you will see that we've changed that environment, that we changed our performance, that we changed the way we use IT, and we changed our processes. And in doing that, we actually need engineers and academics. I'll just give you a small example what you can achieve if you, let's say, don't use the calculator, but use your brain instead. And this is what I would like to encourage you. Don't rely on math on your calculator. First, to try to figure that out with your brain, and because that stimulates you, and math always stimulates you in thinking. Now let's move back to the subject. So, what did we do recently in our customer service center? In the past, when you ask for a connection of BPC, at some stage you need to ask for a quote. How much does that cost to connect me? And for some reason, the average time we needed to provide you with a quote was 43 days. But, yeah, just imagine you need to wait for milk for such a long time. This is not working out. Customers were used to it, but this, well, yes, because BPC are the lazy bones. So we needed to change that. We need to be now more customer-orientated, more service-orientated, and we changed that. So we brought in guys which we call lean managers, which is in general nothing more or less than process re-engineering. And we brought them into our customer service center, and together the team developed a new process. So what does that mean now? We are doing a trial right now, and we just finished that trial with roughly 400 customers, and we could provide in 73% of the cases a quote for each customer when he came into our building and before he left. So we reduced the whole thing from 43 days to more or less an hour. So the message here is, take everything you learn, communicate that within your community, and then try to find a proper solution for a shorter process. And so we are rolling this tool and process now out all over BPC. And even 43% of our customers paid for the new connection immediately after they received the quote. So having said that, the next step now is to reduce the connection time, the hardware connection time, to our customers as well. And we are shortening that so that at the final end, we will connect every customer when he comes, the time between coming into our office and having the connection should not be more than 2 weeks, and off we go. But for that you need proper engineers. You need to have engineers who can think and who always can think outside the box. And I think this is crucial. Sometimes, yes, it's a hassle for old management. And now I encourage your students, Vice Chancellor, to rebel. Because this is what we need. We need youngsters, young people, who say, okay, this is the establishment, I consider myself establishment, who say, well, see, we've done it in this way for the last 10 years. And when you look at our audit files for the last 10 years, you obviously need to notice we failed. So now we obviously need to change something. And we need the young students now to make this challenge and to think out of the box. And they need to provide the solutions and the fantasy and the creativity to make that change. And then at some stage, the old CEOs like me need to step back a little bit and provide the guidance so that not all of a sudden we make a complete mess out of the whole. But to provide the guidance, but still encouraging them. And I think this is then the new management role, the new role for management. They need to adapt to as well. So all of us need to adapt to this new environment. Having said that, I think these are the expectations the private sector has, on the one hand, to our new engineers, and I think we all need to work on it. Having said that, I encourage the private sector as well as the university experts to work closely together on that subject to make that happen. And then just on another note, I noticed that you said you want to increase research and come up with, let's say, probably new products or solutions. And I think this could be, if we all create it very professionally, quite a job creator. Because I don't believe in a lot of job creation in malls, sorry for saying that again. But if we can find, as engineers, new products, new solutions, and then we build next to your environment here another environment which is then a little bit of a development hub, where you take some of your research, bring it into this development facility, and try to make established entrepreneurs with businesses out of that. I think that could be quite a nice multiplier to do that. And everything we can do from an energy sector on that one, and I stick to my roots, which is energy. I'm happy to facilitate the university in that respect. So, having said that, I think I said earlier on, I don't want to bore you, because I know the speeches. Nevertheless, I just want to conclude with two subjects. The one is the official opening. But before we come to the official opening, it's my great pleasure, and we provided a special gift to the Form 4 girls excelling in mathematics and science within this university. So, having said that, we prepared a little bit of a text. So, Vice Chancellor, if I may ask you to come forward, and we can donate that, and through your honest and helpful hands, then you can Thank you. Thank you very much. I just get you get it back, don't worry. But Chancellor, even if you would lose it, as we are all professionals, we already transferred the money to the account of the university. So we made sure that the money is not diluted somewhere. Don't worry about that. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much listening to me and sharing some smile with me at some stage. So now it gives me great pleasure to declare the third STEAM Festival officially open, and all of you have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you. Before I steal your microphone.
thank you to our Vice Chancellor and to our guest of honor, Dr. Stefan Schwartz-Fischer, for those words. I will briefly summarize after I have asked our next speakers to come to the podium. So next we have a keynote presentation and discussion. And this is on the theme for this festival, which is transforming research into profitable products and services. I would like to invite to the seats on the podium Professor Masupe, the CEO of B3, who will lead the discussion. The discussants will be Dr. Buzanani Sacheba, who is the director of the Botswana Innovation Hub, and also Mr. Teboho Mohali Mang from Spectrum Analysis. We have apologies from Mr. Tato Jensen, who was meant to join us from CEDA. And while they're taking their seats, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Councillor Sopalape, Mr. Zeladiga, who is here with us. So just as they're getting ready, I think I would like to appreciate the words from both the Vice Chancellor and the CEO of BPC. Our guest of honor acknowledged the difficulties in speaking the same language when we want to talk across generations about how we want to achieve our goals. We are here to celebrate STEM, but I think he also highlighted that in our celebrations, we need to be aware of the realities. He talked about tough love, he talked about discipline, and these are all key things that we are responsible for, even in academia, as we're preparing these students for the private sector and other industries. We talked about industry being pivotal to what we're trying to achieve. They have to be part of the preparation of our students. We all, I believe we're aware of the saying that if we want to go fast, we'll go alone, but if we want to go far, we have to go together, and these linkages are invaluable. I believe that our speakers and discussants are ready for us. Thanks.
The Minister of Academics. He said, tell me I will forget. Involve me, I will remember. Now, we have a monster of the topic in our hands. STEM-driven economy, sort of loaded. What I seem to resonate with is transforming research into profitable products and services, because that's what I do. But let me just involve you first before I tell you anything. How many of us here have some sort of an agricultural activity? Let's see by a show of hands. Foodie, homo, backyard garden, just something. Right? That is in our culture, isn't it? In some instances, if you're a man and you don't have one cow, in this culture, you are considered, right? It speaks to the culture. I have a couple of scenarios. The second one is, imagine if you're a patient and you need an operation, and you have a very brilliant doctor who's supposed to operate on you. And that doctor has been taught in class, in university, and they actually know the theory of operating, but they've never done it before. Right? Just imagine that for a minute. We will get to that as we do the presentation. Another scenario is, maybe let's talk about food. You are a chef, a renowned chef in a city, and your restaurant is buzzing. People come in, people go out, the who and who's in CBD. But you never allow your children to eat in your restaurant. And yet you are that now. You are well known. You are a very good chef. Right? Let's take those for a minute. Unfortunately, unlike Swash Fisher here, who was given a speech and he threw it out, I have to bore you with some sort of PR because my director of communications is sitting right here. So if I throw the speech, I'll be in trouble. Right. I was given a few questions to provoke the thinking, and are we as a nation, can we achieve that? We have our products and services to come to a state where we consider them profitable. If not, what will it take for that to happen? Any blockages? We reached that end state, and it was very enlightening listening to Professor Dodolo talk about what is happening at Biust, what they're doing in STEM training, and then you get the private sector coming in and saying that this is what we are prepared to do as a private sector to make sure that the ecosystem is alive. Now, that's my presentation outline. Of course, I have to go through the content. Which one is the point? 10 minutes. Oh, the middle one? Yeah. Okay. Right. Unlike BPC, which has been here for so many odd years, I take it that only a few people here know what B3 is all about. And I've been told, as even yesterday, that whenever I give a presentation, I must talk about what B3 is. So if I don't do that, I'll be in trouble. Then I'll spend maybe more time talking about STEM training than the rest, because my belief is that if you get it right here in the training, then you stand a better chance of getting it right when you do R&D. Now, if you get it right during R&D, you stand a better chance of getting it right going through to commercialization. So the foundation is on the training itself. I'll skip that. We are parastatal, just like EPC. We have been mandated by the government to do research and development. The key thing there is that we need to develop technologies that transforms the people's lives or in line with national priorities. Try to go quickly through that. To be the leading technology solutions provider that transforms lives. That was 3 years ago when we said that. I can comfortably say that we are the leading technology solutions provider in the country right now. that does transform the lives. Only 3 sets of values, not many. Teamwork, empathy, and excellence that we need our employees to bring to the party. No more. Now, the challenge here is, as some of you are academics, getting intelligent people to work as a team, smart people, is close to impossible. Especially the ones with PhDs and all that. I'm a master in my own field. I cannot work with that particular individual. Now, that's the biggest challenge that we face. But if you can get that right, as we will see in the presentation, that it needs to start here in the university, not when they're already in the workplace. Okay, our philosophy is technology solutions from you to us for you. Right. Basically, whatever we do with the end user in mind. When we started, we went throughout the country trying to find out what the challenges are that the people are facing in Botswana. Then we went and we said, and we tried to prioritize in the areas that we need to do the researching and answer those questions that we got from the people. This is what we work in. But why are we here today? 3 phases. It starts here in the university. They go to industry, either BIT or BPC. Then we get some sort of commercialization. If we get it right, I said earlier, if we get it right here, then our chance of succeeding in terms of R&D is very high. But as we saw Professor Toto and Swash Fisher saying earlier, that the two need to work hand in hand. The STEM training is feeding into what is happening in industry. I'm going to talk about industry, although it is R&D pipeline. That also needs to feed back into what is happening within the training itself. It must happen. Right? Let's talk about that surgeon who has never been to a hospital, but they know how to operate. That's the case that I met him. They may be that good in class, but you've never opened someone with a scalpel. I wouldn't trust you near me. If we get it right here, this is where you need proper processes, as DPC was talking about earlier. If you get it right on R&D, you've involved your stakeholders. You are developing a product that you are talking to the people, the co-creation part. The likelihood of you failing when it comes to commercialization is very low, because you've already involved the people who are going to use it eventually. Now, commercialization here, let us note that it does not necessarily mean profit as in money. If that product is impacting people's lives, for us it is commercialization. We have to monitor that impact. You can monetize it, but it does not necessarily mean that the money is coming to you as an organization. That also needs to feed back into the R&D pipeline, the products that we've developed. The people will tell you that we need you to change here, we need this thing to make it better there. The cornerstones of all this is co-creation and collaboration. Without those, then you'll be developing products that go to BPC and they have no discipline, that come to B3 and they have no discipline coming from here. You will be developing products that go to the industry without any person in mind who is going to use that. Right. STEM training. I put in a few thoughts here about STEM training. I think I started with accreditation. Basically, that is trying to put trust with some sort of international metric to say that the products that are coming out from here they have been educated based on these principles that are being used in other countries as well. So we have to trust those. Multidisciplinary credits. That's an interesting one. We are focusing so much on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But you need this, sometimes they call them others, skills, the soft skills. When you train engineers and they live here, and the only thing that they can do is engineering and maths, they are useless when it comes to innovation. Because they can only think about equations. That's it. But they have to have a way of looking at the product from a different perspective. You know, in some sources they call it lateral thinking. You can throw in, even philosophy can throw in there, so that they can be able to think about whatever they're developing from a completely different perspective. If you don't do that, when you build your teams, make sure that you have a sociologist or a psychologist in the team that is doing that product. Industry engagement. The students, they must be involved in what is happening in the industry. And your surgeon who has never been to a hospital, your engineer who has never seen a transistor. Now, trust local here. That was for parents and the professors who have children as well. We have Biust here. We have University of Botswana. We have Biust. We have various institutions that the government has funded. And the government has put in money to train people who are actually lecturing in those institutions. What do parents do? We take our children to South Africa. Right? We take our children to the UK. Now, that's a chef who is well known, who is renowned. But you will never take that children to eat in their own kitchen. That's a problem. Who will trust that product? If you as a parent, you do not trust to take your child to Biust, and you expect EPC to employ that kid who is coming from the institution that you are teaching it, it's a problem. Yeah. Right? So we need to trust local. Staff training, industry engagement. Okay, I spent the bulk of my life as an academic. I have no respect for a lecturer in engineering who has never been to industry. I still have no respect for a lecturer in engineering who has never been to industry. Who will sit in front of the class and talk about a mind crash, and they've only seen it in a book. They've never seen it live. Right. So there has to be a way in which the university, not just the students, the lecturers themselves, they need to go and be in industry as well. Right. Trust local. Again, the industry has a way of not trusting the professionals that are within the university. Now, I'm sorry, BPC, I put you on the spot here. Right, you're putting Professor Toto on the spot area. When we have so much volume of knowledge and professionals in NH locally in Botswana, and what do? You go and import skill outside, and yet we have the skill locally here. That's a problem. That's a problem to me anyway. And the funny thing is that professional who comes from external, they'll come and look for a local expert and then engage them. To me, that's a problem. Leadership awareness. Again, it's being addressed to lecturers. Remember that the lecturers here are supposed to feed into the industries. And you have lecturers who are leading research teams, and they do not allow their research teams to think, maybe outside the box, as Fisher was saying earlier, that be innovative, fall, make mistakes, but for God's sake, still keep trying, right? You have a professor, he said, my way or no way, right? By the way, for postgraduate students, I even pity you even more, because you only have one professor. If you are lucky, you have a second supervisor. But the second supervisor say, you know, you just tell the second supervisor that that guy is not working, right? And when you say that that person is not working, it's just that I told him to do ABCD, they are not doing this, they think they can do that. It's a question of leadership then. So we need to train the people in the academics as well to be leaders, so that they can produce the right stuff that is required when you get into industry. Right? On this phases, I'll not talk much. It's just standard practice processes. You must do a needs analysis or needs assessment before you get into any research, so that you make sure that when you get to the commercialization stage, you have some people that can absorb that. Business case development. And that has to be a living document after you do your needs analysis. You need to constantly, after each gate, after each stage, you need to check what I'm doing, is it still relevant? Does it still make business case? Do we still need to continue doing that? Now, here is another challenge. I have a point that's saying no to good ideas. When you start something, it could be a very good idea initially, and you put in 3 million people in it. Then you go through the whole process of your R&D. Somewhere in the middle, you cross-check to see that, is this thing still making business case? If you find yourself saying no, be brave enough to kill that project. Because if you continue with that project, you'll even lose more money. Because it will never get to the case where it goes to commercial. Right? So be brave enough to just say, this project is not working for us. Yes, it's 3 million, it was R&D. Let's stop it and move on to something that makes business case to us. Your research, you get into product development, and then you prototype. Then you move on to the next stage of your commercialization. I put in here some thoughts, integration of resources. When you put up that team, it has to be multidisciplinary. Even if you're doing an engineering thing, you need someone who's going to look at what you are doing from a completely different perspective. If you have not built those skills at training into your engineers and scientists, get someone, outsource that person. You have to have metrics that you measure yourself. Are we succeeding? Am I being successful in this particular project? If not, kill the project. What that though, you've messed up with government money, but you are saving the government money by not continuing with that. Careful throwers, you need people. Sometimes you have a person in the team who will ask you a question that you never imagined that question being asked. You know, the ones that you call, what idiot? When they ask you something like that, you say, where is this guy from? Right? But they will have provoked you to look at that perspective in a different light. And then, obviously, we need to prioritize research areas. This has to be at a high level. No, well, you can do it within your R&D department, but this needs to be driven from the government. And the last one, when you get into commercialization, if you got it right at R&D, you've tested that idea through your metrics. You keep on checking, is it making business case? Is it still relevant to the end user? By the time you get here, you just choose which method to go with to commercialize it. Because you already know that it has a market. It's just how you now do you spin it out, do you license it, or do you just distribute freely, which is another method of commercialization, by the way. Okay, I put in some things here, technology transfer, IP management. Be careful of your market size. Market size, Botswana, maximum 2 million people. You develop a product that costs maybe, because you want to make it cheap, let's assume that that thing goes for 2 million. Right? You can only make 4 million. That doesn't say much about the market size. But if you were making sure that that product is very good, and you cover the market of Botswana because you are creating it for the national priorities, it's national. If the quality is good, it can still go to Namibia. Okay, Namibia is not that much of a good example because there are about 1 point something million as well. I mean, okay, let's talk about Tanzania or Ethiopia. That product can still sell there, so you need to watch the market as well. Scale of partners. For the innovation in this country, now maybe to answer some of the questions that Doug put into my mind. We need to get the people who are involved in that cycle, in that ecosystem, synergized. We need to get the schools, the training institutions, we need to get the R&D. So does that mean that I talk too much? Oh, okay. Oh, the laptop, no, it's not plugged. We need to get that ecosystem working together. It's not just training institutions, R&D. We also need to get the financials involved. The banks should be sitting here as well. Right? Your commercial banks, not just the BSB or parasitical banks. The commercial banks, they should also be sitting in this environment. And VCs, state-owned entities. Then you need to monitor the impact of the product after you finish. Let me just quickly run through. Oh, it's not even allowing me to go to the conclusions.
Okay.
Okay, a few thoughts to conclude. The country needs to set priority areas of where they need the economy to go into. And then the research and development can focus on that. But this needs to be said at the national level. I know I have it in here. Okay, and then I've already mentioned the second point. We need a functional innovation ecosystem. We need to grow innovation from the roots. What I saw here earlier with Mananate, those are the right steps to grow it from the roots. Now, if you go back to that agriculture scenario that I mentioned earlier, you get to know about agriculture when you're still young. Not when you're already grown up. You cocoa, all these things, because it's in us. So if we teach these kids from the roots, even how to program, I mean, we shouldn't shy away from teaching kids early on to do some programming at primary school, so that we grow innovation from there. We need a balanced regulatory framework. And the last one, and the most important one, trust local. Thank you. Yeah, I actually was going to tell the panel that Professor Dodoro calls Palabi his home, but he's from the Southern District. Now, if you need a local boy, that's me. And I'm just from Ramsey, so. Right, I think, am I the moderator again?
Yes.
Right, okay. Doc?
Thank you very much, Professor Masupe, for the eloquent presentation. Actually, perhaps I would say that distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd also like to say all protocol is being observed. Untitled Chapter is the name with the Botswana Innovation Hub, an institution that is constantly confused with BITRI for one reason or the other. I think it's precisely because we all have the word innovation as part and parcel of our mention. So that always comes in as one of those editors. But within the Botswana Innovation Hub, I would like to say that my portfolio responsibility is innovation and technology. So it pretty much speaks to the subject of STEM as portrayed in this particular gathering. Just a bit of reflection in terms of putting into context the organization, Botswana Innovation Hub. Is commonly, what are commonly referred to as science and technology parks. And those science and technology parks fall within what are broadly called special economic zones. So in one or the other, it's one of the strategic means of the country trying to further diversify the economy. But I'd like to hastily jump to the point of saying that I think most of the elements that constitute the value chain for STEM have been discussed and have been elaborated by the past speaker, and specifically what Professor Masupe has just highlighted in that particular value chain. So I'll step a little bit further than that and sort of reflect it in the context of what we currently have, our Vision 2036. And in my view, and also reflecting on the topic that you've been given, I think we only need to, to further unpack what is the relevance of STEM when we look at what is contained in our Vision 2036. I'm of the view that there is a specific emphasis that is coming out of that vision, which is actually conceptualized in Vision Pillar number 1 on sustainable economic development, which talks to the knowledge-based economy. And this is quite synonymous with the topic of STEM and the aspect of transforming research towards products and services. Essentially speaking, and within that same context, our existence as the Botswana Innovation Hub is to step in at the further downstream of the value chain of the innovation ecosystem that Professor Masupe just mentioned. In the context of, we have research institutes, we have academic organizations that actually employ researchers who are creative, who actually produce the knowledge, who actually develop further products post-research and development, your applied research, your research products, your research solutions. There have to be a dedicated framework within which how those products are further elevated in the context of commercialization. In my view, the word commercialization actually exists in not just one context, but maybe in about 7 or 8 levels, if I put it that way. For some of you that may be familiar with the concept of commercialization, specifically from, I would say, other research institutes at national or at regional or even at global perspective,
there is what are called different technology readiness levels. You can go from technology readiness level 1 all the way to about technology readiness level 8 or so. In which case, you are pretty much talking from the point of products that are at prototype level. That is basically just an idea that is just going to step further. To a point where now you have got a whole, product concepts which have been market researched, which has been validated, which has got potentially for being scaled up. And that's really the point where we come in from the Botswana innovational perspective. It's to say, what is it that you can be able to aggregate that is got potential impact from a societal perspective, which can then further be leveraged on or invested on with the view of bringing in further value, not to the researchers themselves, but to the broader economy. And that was very much emphasized by Professor Stotolo in terms of going beyond individual, now looking at creating impact that goes far beyond just one person. Now, in reflecting on that aspect, and also to the issue of transforming research into profitable products and services, I thought I could quickly, if you allow me, Prof, just to highlight some of the things that I think are most relevant for us here as the STEM community, but also I would say most relevant to the youngsters, to the young learners. The first one is what I would call embracing disruptions. And I'm sure you all agree with me that we are currently living in a disruptive environment, and that in any case, at any given time, it's just a matter of time of when something is going to happen that is going to disrupt the way you're doing things. And that is obviously going to allow you to be able to find different means of doing what it is that you've been doing. That is change. The second one is inspiring young generation. And I think that has been demonstrated quite effectively from what we experienced earlier on. Through a very eloquent and efficient panel discussion by very young minors who are very well conceptualized in terms of what it is that they are saying and very much well aligned. To me, that basically talks to the whole aspect of mindset changed. And I'm sure you'd agree with me that there's been a major shift in mindset change in the last 10 to 15 years ago, where I would say that most of the graduates that are coming out of academic institutions like this one, would have been basically saying, I'm going to look for a job. What we are currently experiencing right now is that, the kind of inspirations that we see within the graduates is that day one, they come out of university, they're not even thinking about a job. They're thinking about creating employment. And in creating employment, they're also thinking about how do they network and interact with other people of like mind, entrepreneurs, people that can be able to generate employment. So I think that is really very much relevant in the context of where we are. The next one is investment in knowledge, and I think to that extent it's mainly been covered. And on this particular one, I just wanted to reflect in terms of what is currently happening at national level. Obviously, we see government investing quite a sizable amount of resources on academic institutions, but I think the step further is really getting more into investment on the actual research. Being able to have specific dedicated instruments that are talking to how is it that you create that pool of knowledge which can then be tapped into if you are going to come up with any products, if you are going to come up with any services. There's still very little that is going into that particular space. So I think it's a space to look into. Just a quick example, if we reflect into our next door neighbor, South Africa, out of their last budget speak, the largest reallocation of resources towards government priorities was on higher education and training, amounting to an additional funding of 57 billion in the medium term. So to me that says that it's a dedicated effort to ensure that the aspect of transforming research into those products and services is very much relevant. And for we as a country to be able to advocate for that, we need to be able to build that pipeline. We need to be able to see more of this kind of initiatives like STEM. We need to be able to see more innovations, more inventions being aggregated. And by aggregation, I'm not just talking about naming them. Is that, but it's about looking at where they are in the value chain that is talked about. What is their potential for investment? What kind of risk do they still remain that they need to be able to overcome to get to a point where there's more traction For an investor to come in and say, look, I can be able to put money into this particular one. That is the dedication that we need to be able to look into. And I think that is something that I would like to urge us as the STEM community to be able to look into. Investment in industrial infrastructure, I think that's a critical one. The professor Tokolo earlier on talked about the nodes, development of Gaborone, development of Franstown, and now possibly the development of Palato as a node. I think there's a number of frameworks and approaches to that. I just mentioned the aspect of special economic zone. In my view, there's a lot of opportunities in looking at aspects of further development which take into cognizance what else is happening elsewhere. I think a more holistic approach is much, much better than perhaps maybe looking at it from a one-sided. By one-sided, I mean Prof was talking about the advent of new malls being built, the advent of them being able to provide services and supplies. In my view, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that point of actually creating opportunities for even new entrepreneurs that are breaking into that space. That are secondary to the bigger ones. Beyond the mall, what is it that is going to happen? It's about creating wealth. It's about allowing the new entrepreneurs that are in the same node to be interlinked to be able to get to a point where they can produce. And there are models that are talking to this, your innovation districts, your cooperation spaces, which Prof did mention, maker spaces, being able to have test beds. In my view, Biust is practically a very good test bed in the sense that it can be a platform where your entrepreneurs can be able to further test that which they think is innovations. And the more iterations they make, the better it becomes and the more valuable it becomes. The last two are what has been mentioned already, the area of intellectual property development. In my view, that is really a big gap in terms of where we are going. I've got reason to believe that most of the times we talk about what it is that we do from a research and development, but really there is that very big that has to say what is it that we're going to transform into products and services and how we're going to do that. And there's a whole lot of issues to do with our intellectual property approach and framework that needs to be addressed. On that particular aspect, to me, it's about capacity building, it's about aligned policy frameworks, it's about ensuring that the whole aspect of technology transfer and commercialization is really looked. Policies such as the IP policy, which is now under the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, I think, and then there's also the research, science, technology, innovation policies, which in my view, if well aligned, they can be able to drive specific quick wins within of what we currently have as endowed solutions and services. Lastly is an area of market access for small, medium enterprises. In my view, there's no really value in creating a pool of research that we're not going to be able to progress further. It's really about ensuring that as we create the value proposition of having a pool of those products, those inventions that are likely to have an impact, to also have a dedicated framework on ensuring that they are constantly being spun out, they are constantly being further developed, and being directed specifically to where they're going to be able to have impact. And I think that is really where I think we play a critical role as the STEM community in terms of ensuring that your small startups, they get to appreciate what markets exist for them, what kind of support they need to be able to have access to. And from the Botswana Innovation Hub perspective, I can highlight very few and straightforward kind of interventions that are in place. The first one being a very strategic grant funding scheme called the Botswana Innovation Hub Fund. We just recently went through the first round of calls for proposals, and it's the first initiative. And from that already we are seeing very much interest in the context of people bringing out what in our view is very innovative products, which are at a very nascent stage, and they need to be sort of supported from a gap closing funding framework where eventually we can see them be able to progress. And part and parcel of what they would seek from research institutions like an academic organization like Biust is that they will need to be able to use this, as I said, as a test platform, as a test bed platform. And the best way that framework works is that there is investment in finances which allows that gap closing funding framework also facilitate the further development of skills. Labor and tax dispensations, look, most people think that these things are not necessarily working, but in our view, having been implemented similar interventions, we think that they've got traction. I always say that there's a time when you're going to need that expertise, that service that you don't necessarily have, Prof. I know you mentioned that you are an advocate of local, but I can attest to the fact that there are instances where if you are trying to mobilize a project in a specific area, the kind of resources that you want to be able to have will not necessarily be able to get to run with. And then there's more that I can be able to talk to. But all I'm saying is that there's quite a number of things that we need to be able to have a specific focus. And lastly, my last word is really on the aspect of, I talked about the disruptions. To say that it's always good to be relevant. If we are all going to do research, let it be research that is relevant in terms of where the trends are going. And in our view, we are now in the advent of the so-called fourth industrial revolution, where common utterances are around your blockchain technologies, your fintech, your agtech, automations, drones technologies, 3D printing, renewable clean technologies, for example, talking about the Botswana Power Corporation. And I think that this is really where we need to be able to, as STEM, especially researchers, to latch into, because there's a lot of investment that is going in that particular area. These areas are highly researched, and they pose great opportunities for addressing many challenges that we do encounter now. Thank you very much.
This is what always happens if you don't leave Dr. Takeda. You'll speak on and on. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that it was going to be one of those cases. Now, we saw what happened to the mad scientist earlier. Without the proper tools, you will not be able to achieve what you intended to achieve. Now, Mr. Mgalema, as an independent innovator, when you look at the innovation ecosystem, what challenges do you face on a day-to-day trying to break into the system? I know we've had we've had our own round table before, but
thank you, Prof. My name is Tabo Mohalema. I'm an entrepreneur, so I basically consider myself a problem solver. Because to me, entrepreneurship is problem solving. And in many ways, I would like to put everybody here on the spot, from the educators to the industry players, DIH and Big 3 here as well. Because what I've seen is that we are trying to achieve the same goal in silos. And that is an impediment towards getting where we want to go, because in many ways we are duplicating efforts and we are not getting the best from resources that we put into these initiatives. But funding always is a problem, but there is no need to fund me if I'm not going to be able to take my innovation somewhere and it's not going to be consumed by anybody. I don't want to be funded to just say I've been funded and now my solution is not creating value anyway. And that word value, I would like to reposition it within the context of the STEM theme itself. Transforming research into profitable products and services. I'm part of the STEM Festival Organizing Committee, and yesterday as I was interrogating this in my mind, I was like, we should have said value creating there, because some people are profitable but not creating value. That we know, like we have tenderpreneurs, they are in the business of putting markup on other people's products and then selling them at a higher cost. To me, there is nothing innovative with that kind of mentality, but that's the nature of the ecosystem we are in. And that's the procurement system that the government, by and large, has gone on to embrace. And I would wish to put everybody in the spot here, because I know you procure some services and products. We as well say, even B3, BPC as well, to say, but is what we are doing in that respect encouraging people to identify gaps in the market and then think and apply themselves towards solving these problems? Are we? Or are we just encouraging people to just master percentages? Okay, I'm going to put 60% into this, so that would mean I'll take home this and that. But to come back to the theme itself, I'd like to show you some amazing numbers there, if we could. from the Global Competitive Index, and this is from a survey done by DRST, I think. It just evaluates where we are as a country. And just look therefore at our capacity for innovation. Out of 140 countries, we are 102. Quality of scientific research and institutions, we are 99, number 99 in the world. Company spending on research and development, we are 112. And this one, for me, is quite critical because I've been listening here and we talk of research in an institutionalized manner, like it belongs to academia alone. But in the developed world, we have companies investing heavily in R&D, but we are not seeing that here. Yet the industry are the ones like with challenges that needs to be addressed. So if our industry players are not investing in R&D, it's going to create, and I'll zoom forward, a problem where the government, when it comes to expenditure on research and development, is the biggest contributor. Just look at where, like, how much our industry is like contributing towards that. So that means that academic institutions and research institutions rely on government for that, for funding. If they are not funded, they can't have any research output that is tangible. But is this what we want? Now, if you are to look at where we channeling all the funds for research as well, look at engineering and technology. We're spending more on natural sciences. It's not a problem, but I'm saying here we are at the STEM festival and we're just getting crumbs from the dinner table in many ways. And just to show you how bad this is, when it comes to the percentage of our GDP, we are only spending 0.54% of that on R&D. 0.54. And now when I read a thing like ours, where we talk about transforming research into profitable products and services, I get scared because here we are talking one thing, but practically we're doing the opposite. And over the years, if you were to watch, we've been regressing because I don't know if you can see it, but can you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I excluded the slide. But we've been regressing over the years, and yet we have been amplifying the volume of STEM, research and development. So in many ways, I would like to see us as stakeholders, all of us, realigning our efforts so that we can push together like in a more organized way. I have many other points that I wanted to discuss with you, but I'll just go on and summarize most of them. We need a mindset shift. It's inevitable. We can't have students from Manaleji coming here talking about inquiry-based learning, and then after graduation we have students not getting opportunities to apply their minds to solve our local problems. I'm a graduate. I've been fortunate enough to get government sponsorship to study in the UK. The same students I was in class with right now, I graduated in 2008. They have done amazing things, and I've come home thinking, oh yeah, I can come back home and make a difference. But it's difficult. And if it's difficult for me as somebody who has studied in a system that equips one with the necessary skills to innovate, to solve problems, how about students that have not had that exposure? So in many ways, we need a mindset shift in leadership at policy-making level. We need to come up with policies and stop waxing lyrical about having perfect policies but poor implementation. That to me is sad to hear whenever I hear it. Because if we are not making policies with implementation in mind, then all we are is just coming up with brilliant words and of no use to anyone. And then we need to change how we educate our students. We need them to be more problem-solving driven, because as I started, entrepreneurship is to me is like problem-solving. And we also need the industry players to chip in terms of R&D. This over-reliance on government is unsustainable in the long term. And we also need the community at large to consume local, to trust local, as Professor Masupe has said. And without further ado, I wouldn't want to bother you with the details. I can talk forever. But I realized that I haven't also mentioned like what I do as well. I'm a founder and technical director at a startup called Spectrum Analytics. We help companies extract value from data. Each one of us here is contributing towards generation of huge amounts of data that can be interrogated for insight that can drive value creation in all sorts of institutions and industries. So we are on display. We have a stall that side, so if anybody wants to catch up with us, they can catch us at the stall. Thank you.
And Mr. Magalema closes with some PR. Just to close up, because we are out of time. Dr. Shep, what has been said over and over is that people are working in silos. Now, what is the hub doing in order to make sure that there is that ecosystem? Just as a closing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just quickly delve into the interventions that we have from the Botswana Innovation Hub perspective in terms of further enhancing the development of the ecosystem. To start with, we have dedicated specific events through the year where we are basically engaging different, sectoral focus, the academia, entrepreneurs, the industry, where we put to them specific initiatives about how we want to be able to progress. We have got dedicated activities on every Friday. We've got what we call coffee sessions, which are really a platform to discuss topics that are of relevance of the now, and where we try to, extract, input from the wider public as well as from entrepreneurs in terms of how they want to be able to progress that. We have a dedicated annual event, which we call, Innovation Botswana, which we started last year. An event in nature of fact, that is an event that we want to grow from the perspective of ensuring that as we profile innovations and we put them before investments, it can be a pipeline that we create as we go forward. We do have outreach initiatives where we encourage what we call inclusive innovations. Being out there in the rural community where we build that kind of traction. Normally, what we call indigenous knowledge systems. It's very difficult to package it like other conventional R&D. So it's about developing a framework of, pulling out what is essentially relevant to our society and bringing out to a point where it's relevant. From that perspective, that's really some of the initiatives that we're doing to ensure that we create that aspect of, inclusiveness. But over and above that, I'll say that it's really a task not for only one institution. It's a task that has to involve all of us. And I commend the organizers of the STEM Festival, because I think the more of this kind of platforms we have, the more easy it can be for us to be able to aggregate and constantly keep track of, which innovations need investment on and what kind of interventions are required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are done, unless we are required to do something else.
Professor Matsupe, for your presentation and for moderating the discussion. I wish that we'd had more time to get the perspectives of those in the audience who may have something to add. But I believe that their discussions have set the tone for the rest of the STEM Festival. And I would like now to please ask the exhibitors to make their way out to the multipurpose hall so that they get ready for our guests. Included in the exhibitors, Manaledi Primary School, you are asked to please take your Wonder Box to the exhibition room in the multipurpose hall. Exhibitors, please make your way out to the multipurpose hall, including Manaledi and the Wonder Box that you have made. So just as the exhibitors. As the exhibitors are making their way out, would also like to thank Dr. Buzanani Tacheva and Mr. Deboko Mokalembang for the discussion that you had, and we value your contribution. I think from that presentation, I think we can appreciate that products and services from STEM are expensive, but we need to get to a space where we're not thinking about that cost as just expenditure. We're looking at it as investment to get the products and services that we're talking about and for that value creation that we've been talking about throughout this morning. So I would now like to invite to the podium Dr. Sejama Panyane, who is part of the, who is a Biust Council member, to come and give a vote of thanks to all those present here today.
Good afternoon to you all protocol observed. I must say that I didn't expect to be coming up here at this late hour. I was hoping for the morning, but I am here, and my job is very straightforward. The guest of honor, Dr. Stefan Schwarzfinger, the keynote speaker, Professor Sheldon Masupe, and the respective discussants. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege this afternoon to deliver a vote of thanks on this unique occasion in the Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics Festival, commonly known as STEM. On behalf of the Biust Council, management, staff, students, and the entire fraternity represented here today, and indeed my own behalf, I extend a warm vote of thanks to all speakers for taking their time from their busy schedules to grace 2018 STEM Festival. To the exhibitors, I know they left just a while ago. Distinguished guests, sponsors, and all participants, this occasion would not have been possible without your involvement. I thank you greatly. A special thank you goes to the guests of honor for putting into perspective the task ahead in developing STEM, and in particular also involving everyone. I did realize that during the demonstrations, you tried very hard to involve both boys and girls. That is very, very important, because there's a tendency for gender imbalances in many things that we do. The keynote speaker, I also thank you for an inspiring and motivational and provoking to the top that will definitely spur us all to come to the next STEM festival to be counted one way or the other. If for nothing else, perhaps to bring our own children, grandchildren, next door child, the child that is in your house who's always fugitive and touching everything and breaking your most prized ornament. Perhaps they need to be here to get very curious and also to get involved. I would have failed in my job if I can finish this without mentioning the private sector sponsorship that we received from different companies, amongst which Murupule, AT&T, Monakota Travel and Tours, Air Botswana, Stoneham City, Skylink Express, and other stakeholders such as Botswana Innovation Hub, Buang, UB, BPC, District. And also, I would like to emphasize that for this to happen, there are many people who are not here today who are behind this preparation, behind the scenes, and work tirelessly to make sure that this day happens. These people may not, or even in the future, ever see the inside of this auditorium, but yet they believe that whatever it is that we intend to do in a gathering like this, it's important for them to work tirelessly. I thank you all heartily for gracing this occasion, and I do hope that in the future you'll bring many other people and spread the word on STEM, so that when going to the future, our children, instead of saying I'm going to buy a cow, they will say something about mathematics and engineering. Instead of growing that garden, which I'm known for, they'll do something more innovative along the lines of STEM. And I'm sure that the institutions that we have today are always willing to assist those who take the initiative to get involved, or to understand more, or to come closer to the reality of the challenges that we face as a developing country to get where everybody else in the world is. I thank you all.
And I would like to reiterate her thanks to everyone who is here today. And even if we're buying that cow or growing that garden, I think Biust is the place to come for control of livestock diseases, getting flowers that are brighter and vegetables growing, getting larger yields from your gardens. I think we're still able to assist in those fields. We shouldn't let go of what we are traditionally in order to move towards something entirely new. we should still take through our past with us. I would like to now invite to the podium our Vice Chancellor again to hand over gifts to our guest of honor and our keynote presenter and our Biust Council member. This is a gift for, I would like to invite over Dr. Schwarzfischer.
Thank you all. Yes, for addressing importance. Yes. So I take that to the next COCLA meeting. Yes, yes. And also, in your quota at home, you must make your quota at your home. But then we have different rules of engagement. So this is more for my wife than for the chicks.
Thank you. And Professor Masupe.
Thank you. This is now when you are in Malabar, you must sit on this one. No more anything.
And Dr. Mapangan. Thank you, VP. Just an announcement on catering arrangements before we leave the auditorium for the tour of exhibits. Please note that after the exhibits in the multipurpose hall, the VIP will proceed to the Faculty of Sciences for their refreshments, and other guests will be issued coupons on their way out from the multipurpose hall, and the feeding will happen near that exhibition hall. Thank you so much for gracing this event.
Thank you.
Thank you.